What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Another Turnover, the basketball podcast where a basketball fan with no basketball credibility gives his opinions on what's going on in the NBA. Opinions that nobody asked for. As always, I'm your host, Mr. Chris Aaron Murphy, aka Aaron, and ladies and gentlemen, let's just jump right into it. So, folks, we are back with Season 6. This is Episode 12 of Season 6, the 105th episode overall. We are rocking and rolling. So, it shouldn't be too long of a show this evening. As you can tell by me saying this evening, I'm recording this Friday evening. It's been a week. It's been a week, but we're going to look at the current standings for each conference as it comes to the end of January, as it'll be February here in just a few short days, Black History Month in just a few short days. And then we will look at the latest rumors surrounding Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks potentially trading him. So news came out from senior ESPN NBA insider Shams Charania. So we'll take a look at the current standings for each conference and then talk about some Giannis trade rumors. So let's start in the Eastern Conference. So we've, of course, got the Detroit Pistons, still the number one seed in the Eastern Conference, sitting at 34-12. They've, of course, had many notable wins against really all of the top teams in the East. They've beaten New York, they beat Cleveland, they've beaten Boston. Their next 5 games, I mean, they've got a decent slate over the next 5 games. I got it pulled up here. They'll be taking on the Golden State Warriors. They'll also be taking in their next 5 games the Boston Celtics, and then they've got Miami as well, who is currently a playoff team if the playoffs were to start today. And then you got Chicago and Chicago, and who else is in here? Oh, and Brooklyn. So I mean, a couple of under 500 teams, but what are the reasons for why the Detroit Pistons are where they are? Just to keep it brief, I mean, their defense, they are ranked number 2 overall in overall defensive rating. And I mean, Cade Cunningham has been balling out. Jalen Duren has also been playing very well, pretty much both all-star levels. So Cade Cunningham averaging 25 points per game, nearly 10 assists per game. I think it's 9.7 assists per game. And then you got Jalen Duren averaging a double-double. He's got 18 points per game and 10.6 rebounds. So I know I've talked about the Detroit Pistons a lot, and I don't think they're going to sustain it. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they prove me wrong. Detroit basketball, it's been a while. Last time I remember Detroit being good was the Chauncey Billups to Tayshaun Prince, Rasheed Wallace days, and that was a long time ago. So, but Detroit Pistons still the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference. Then number 2 seed as of right now, they own the tiebreaker for the number 2 seed. That's the New York Knicks. They are 29-18 so far on the season. Had some notable wins, beating Boston, beating Philadelphia, beating Minnesota. Their next 5 games are mostly, well, it's kind of split. They've got some teams under 500, like they got Milwaukee coming up. They've got Indiana coming up and Portland as well. And then they've got Orlando and Toronto. So it's a couple of decent Eastern Conference teams. But, I mean, they're pretty much in the spot that they have now. Not solely because of the coaching of Mike Brown, but it definitely has helped. He's actually done a really good job, I would say, overall, kind of stepping in after Coach Tibbs was let go. And I mean, he's been able to, pretty much get the most from Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns. Jalen Brunson currently scoring 27.6 points per game, also putting in 6 assists per game. And then you got Karl Anthony Towns averaging a double-double as well. 20 points per game, 11 rebounds per game. So shout out to Mike Brown. I mean, he's a solid coach. I know he's been at a few different places around the league, but he's been doing a pretty good job with this New York Knicks team. And then, of course, they won the NBA Cup. So, I mean, I know that was a few weeks ago, but, they got some momentum, or last month, if I'm not mistaken. But they got some momentum. I know it's not the real trophy, it's not the Larry O'Brien that all the guys want, but, I mean, it's still an accomplishment. They won the NBA Cup, so they've definitely got some momentum on this season because of that. But in the number 3 seed, You got the Boston Celtics, also 29-18. Like I said, the Knicks own the tiebreaker as it stands currently. They've gotten some, notable wins against a few teams. I mean, Philadelphia, the Clippers, they beat as well, and they've got a decent stretch of games here against above 500 teams. So, like I said, they've got the Detroit Pistons coming up within the next week. They've got the Philadelphia 76ers. They got Miami. So all currently playoff teams that they'll be playing. They also got Sacramento and Atlanta. They're actually playing Sacramento tonight as of the time of recording, and I think they're killing them. But mostly their offense have kept them among the top 3 seeds in the Eastern Conference so far, ranked number 2 overall in adjusted offensive rating. And then Jaylen Brown. I mean, Jaylen Brown has definitely been carrying the scoring load for this Boston Celtics team. I mean, putting up crazy numbers. I mean, I know he's a former Finals MVP. We know what Jaylen Brown can, bring to the table. But, I mean, 29 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 5 assists per game. Definitely, I would say, MVP caliber numbers so far in the first half of this season. So, definitely shout out to Jaylen Brown and the Boston Celtics. But in the 4th spot, you got the Toronto Raptors. Toronto Raptors are sitting at 29-20 on the year. Beaten some good teams this year. They've beaten Phoenix. They've beaten Dallas. Their next 5 slate of games, they've got the New York Knicks and the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic, just to name 3 of the teams. And then the other 2, they've got Charlotte and Milwaukee, so some below 500 teams. But Toronto has definitely been an early surprise, I would say. Currently being a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. They lead the league, when I was doing my research for the show, they lead the league in transition points, which I did not know that, obviously because they're not on TV all that much. And then, Brandon Ingram and Scotty Barnes have done, pretty well for them on the offensive side of the ball. Brandon Ingram, when I was doing my research for the show, saying he's bringing back or reviving the mid-range. So he does have a pretty good mid-range jump shot. But Toronto Raptors definitely been an early surprise in the first half of the season. So can they remain a top 4 seed in the East and get home court advantage in the first round? Remains to be seen. Who knows? But 5th seed, also with the same record as the Toronto Raptors, you got the Cleveland Cavaliers sitting at 29-20. Notable victories that they've had: they've beaten Denver, they've beaten Orlando, they just beat the Lakers, they beat the brakes off the Lakers the other night, Thursday night, if I'm not mistaken. And they've got some good teams coming up here in their next 5 games. Their next 4 out of 5 games, you've got Phoenix, then they take on Toronto, then Philadelphia, and then Oklahoma City. So that 4-game stretch is going to be tough for them. But they pretty much kept their core from last year. I know they had an early exit against the Indiana Pacers in that second round. I mean, losing convincingly. I think they lost in 5 games. But, it's definitely helps them stay where they are, kind of somewhat in that upper echelon of the Eastern Conference teams. They definitely had some questionable losses, don't get me wrong. But keeping their core pretty much intact has definitely helped them, in the first part of this season. And they're actually ranked number 1 in field goal percentage. So shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're doing their thing in the first part of the season. And then you got the Philadelphia 76ers at the 6th spot. 26-21 is their current record. They have beaten Dallas. They've beaten Miami. Their next 5 teams that they play, they got some good ones coming up in the slate. They've got Minnesota, they've got Boston, they've got Cleveland, and then they've got the Lakers. So they've been able to kind of recover. I talked about, I think it was last week, they've been able to recover from the early uncertainty with injuries to pretty much most of their guys. I mean, Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, Joel Embiid, you name it. They were all dealing with some sort of injury early on in the year. And of course, they got, the vet, the big fella, Joel Embiid, still a dominant force. In the Eastern Conference, when he is healthy, arguably a top 10 player in the NBA. I mean, he was an MVP, like we talked about, not long ago. So shout out to the Philadelphia 76ers. So in the 7th spot, you've got the Miami Heat. They are 26-23 on the year. Had some good wins. They've beaten Detroit. They've beaten the Los Angeles Lakers. And they've got some good teams coming up here over the next week. All 5 of their next games are against teams over 500. So you got Detroit, you got Boston, you got San Antonio, you got Houston, and then you have Orlando as well. So they do really well in terms of playing with a really hard to keep up with pace. And their assist rate is really solid as well. And I mean, that we got to give shout out to Eric Spoelstra, right? I mean, they've had some injuries to Tyler Hero and Davion Mitchell, but he's a good coach. I mean, he's definitely arguably the best coach in the NBA currently. I mean, you could probably make the argument for a few others, but Eric Spoelstra, he knows how to coach. He's doing his thing in Miami so far, keeping them in that 7th seed. So, and then lastly, I'm only going to talk about the top 8 teams, by the way. So if the playoffs started today, these would be the teams that would make it. You got the Orlando Magic sitting at 24-22 on the year, beating some good teams. Miami is included in one of those. Pretty sure they beat the Knicks at some point this year too, if I'm not mistaken. But then coming up over the next 5 games, they've got the New York Knicks, they got the Toronto Raptors, they got the Miami Heat, and then they have Charlotte and Dallas as well. So 3 out of the 5 teams over 500. So definitely a tough stretch over this next 5. But they are ranked top 5 defensively in terms of their defensive rating. We've talked about them a few times on the show. And then Desmond Bane, who they acquired in the offseason from the Memphis Grizzlies, trading a bevy of picks for him. But that's a story for another day. Been doing solid for this team. I definitely think the Orlando Magic will continue to creep up into the standings. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up getting a top 6 seed, so not having to be a play-in team. I'm pretty high on this Orlando Magic team, especially Paolo Banchero. So the Orlando Magic sitting 24-22 and 8th seed in the Eastern Conference. So, but let's transition. Let's talk about the Western Conference. Of course, still the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, the Oklahoma City Thunder, sitting at 38-11 on the year. I think they just lost last night, if I'm not mistaken. Who did they lose to? I can't remember. But they've pretty much beaten everybody. I mean, they've beaten Golden State Warriors. They beat Phoenix. They beat Minnesota. They've beaten the Spurs, I know. I think they beat the Rockets opening night. So, I mean, they've been beating everybody. But they are not invincible after starting up 24-1, now sitting at 38-11. So, they've definitely had a tough go of it over the last 15 games or so. But their next 5, they've got Minnesota, they've got Denver, they've got Cleveland, they've got the Lakers, and they got the San Antonio Spurs again. So, that is a tough stretch of 5 games. So, reasons for why they're in the position that they're in. I mean, they've got that championship pedigree, defending champions, playing with some, solid confidence overall. They just hound people on the defensive end. And I mean, they're deep. Their coach, whose name escapes me, it's the youngest team to ever win a title, but he plays a lot of guys for that Oklahoma City Thunder team. So still the number 1 seed in the West, number 1 seed in the league, probably will finish with the best record, barring any unforeseen circumstances. But in the number 2 spot, you got my wonderful, amazing, talented San Antonio Spurs, sitting at 32-15 on the year. I mean, they've beaten the Lakers, they've beaten Phoenix, they've beaten the Rockets, they beat the brakes off the Oklahoma City Thunder multiple times. So, I mean, they've been doing their thing. They really have been balling out. Their next 5, they've got some good teams they're playing. They're playing Miami. Like I said, they're playing Oklahoma City, playing Phoenix and Houston. So 4 out of their 5 against teams over 500. So a tough stretch of games for the San Antonio Spurs as well. Do I think they'll rise to the occasion? Of course. I actually went to the Spurs-Rockets game. This would have been this past week, Wednesday night. Spurs won. They won by like 11 or 12 points, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a rough first 3 quarters. I'll tell you that much. Well, really rough first half. And they started to turn things around towards the tail end of the 3rd quarter and really ran away with that game against the Rockets in the 4th quarter. So I was happy. My wife was not, who's a Rockets fan. But, I mean, hey, it is what it is. I guess when it comes to sports, specifically NBA basketball, we got a divided household. But no, in all seriousness, I mean, Victor Wembanyama, definitely the runaway favorite for Defensive Player of the Year right now. A big reason, of course, why they're winning as many games as they are. Of course, that's if he meets the 65-game threshold, which, he's had some injuries and whatnot. So hopefully he meets it, because he honestly, I think he would have won Defensive Player of the Year last year had he not got hurt. But that's a story for another day. But then you've got Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, solid backcourt overall. You also have Dylan Harper coming off the bench. Mark my words, Dylan Harper is going to be a star. I feel it. Watching that game on on Wednesday against the Rockets, I mean, I was like, give him the game ball. I think he had like 16 points in that game, but he just carries himself with a level of poise and confidence. Doesn't seem to get rattled at such a young age. So Dylan Harper, Ron Harper's son, champion Ron Harper's son. Yeah, he's gonna be solid. I really do. So, but I really love this young core that the Spurs have. So they're sitting at 32-15 on the year, and only up from here. At least I hope. But then you got the Denver Nuggets, 32-16. I mean, they've beaten Philadelphia. They've beaten Oklahoma City Thunder. Had some solid wins. Have obviously been playing without Jokic. They are currently 10-6 on the year without Jokic. But I think he's actually coming back tonight. As of the time of recording, he might be playing right now, if I'm not mistaken. But their next 5, they've got the Oklahoma City Thunder, they've got the Clippers, they've got the Golden State Warriors, and the Minnesota Timberwolves, as well as the Sacramento Kings. So those first 4 matchups, definitely against solid teams, going to be tough. But Nikola Jokic, he's the man. He's still in the running for MVP. I don't think he's missed out on that 65 game threshold, putting up video game numbers before he went down with that knee injury. And then the additions that they made, it definitely addressed their bench issues. Now, they just had a big hit. Aaron Gordon, I think, is dealing with injury now. He's going to be out, I think it was like 4 to 6 weeks. So that kind of sucks. You have Gordon playing pretty well, and then you lose Gordon, but at least you get Jokic back. I'll take that as a consolation prize. But the Nuggets though, playing pretty well. The Spurs and Nuggets have been kind of going back and forth. Spurs are only half a game better than the Nuggets right now. I don't know who owns the tiebreaker. Probably the Nuggets, but playing some good basketball in the first half of the year. And then you got the Houston Rockets, 29-17, beating some good teams. I mean, they beat Phoenix, they beat the San Antonio Spurs. I think they beat the Denver Nuggets as well earlier this year. But their next 5 games, they've got Miami, they've got the San Antonio Spurs, they've got the Portland Trail Blazers. Also have Memphis Grizzlies and the Utah Jazz. So Memphis, Utah, and Portland, not all that great. But, Kevin Durant has been doing his thing for the Houston Rockets as well. When I was watching that game against the Spurs the other night, man, I was like, my goodness, he's so good at basketball. That was the first time I ever seen Kevin Durant play in person. But he's him, obviously. And then the Houston Rockets defense has been pretty solid as well. I mean, you've got, Steven Adams was hurt now, but before Steven Adams went down, you had him, Amen Thompson, Tari Eason. I mean, a lot of solid defenders, especially on the perimeter. So the Houston Rockets team, they've been doing their thing. I gotta give them props where they're due, just because I don't want to be that biased on the show. I'm biased, but I'm not that biased. And then you got the Minnesota Timberwolves sitting at 30-19 on the year. They beat Oklahoma City, they beaten Boston, they beaten Miami. Their next 5 games, 4 out of the 5 are against teams over 500. The team that's not over 500 are the Clippers, who are definitely ascending. I mean, they got Oklahoma City, they got Philly, they've got Denver, they got Golden State. So tough stretch of games coming up for the Minnesota Timberwolves. I mean, Anthony Edwards he's a bona fide superstar. He's doing his thing. That size on the Minnesota Timberwolves seems to really bother a lot of teams that they play. Of course, you got Gobert down low, and then you got Julius Randle, who's a very versatile 4, can stretch the floor in most instances, and a decent defender as well. So when I was doing my research for the show, it was talking about how the Minnesota Timberwolves are sometimes a matchup nightmare for teams that go small. So, but they've been doing their thing. Shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then you got in the 6th seed, you've got the Los Angeles Lakers sitting at 28-18 on the year. I mean, they've beaten Phoenix. Who else have they beaten? When I was doing my research for the show, it says Memphis here, but Memphis is not that good, so who really cares? But they've been doing their thing. They've had their own set of injuries. I know LeBron was out first part of the year. Austin Reeves was out for a while. I know Luka just recently got hurt. I think he hurt his ankle in that game against Cleveland the other night. So I don't know how long he's supposed to be out, or if he's going to miss any time at all. But their next 5 games, amongst that 5, they got the Oklahoma City Thunder, they got Phoenix, they got Philly. Then they also got Dallas, Dallas is still well under 500, 10 games under 500, but don't count Dallas out just yet. If they get AD and Kyrie Irving back, they could make some noise in the later part of the season. But clutch performances have helped the Lakers, though. They have a high win rate in games that have been decided by 5 points or less. So that's definitely, when I was reading that, I was like, well, that's a good statistic to have. So if the game's close, they got a chance. But, they've LeBron James was out, like I said, earlier in the year, so health has definitely been a question, but he's been available recently. But yeah, I can't say too many bad things about the Los Angeles Lakers. I mean, they definitely have their issues, don't get me wrong, but for the issues that they've had, for them to still be in the 6th seed is decent. It's not that bad. And then you got the Phoenix Suns sitting at 29-19. They definitely are overachieving right now. I mean, they've definitely probably been the surprise of the Western Conference, I would say. I mean, all the other teams that I've talked about, yeah, I kind of expected them to be where they are. With the exception of San Antonio, they're definitely higher than I thought. But Phoenix Suns, like I said, 29-19, beating some solid teams. I mean, they've got upcoming, they've got Cleveland, San Antonio, the Lakers, Golden State, so they'll definitely be tested over these next stretch of games over the next week and a half or so. But Devin Booker, I mean, scoring, he's incredible right now, and I thought I had his statistics up. Let me take a look real quick, because I wanted to talk about, averaging 25.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, shooting 45% from the field. So pretty solid year for Devin Booker. And then they've got some guard play, Tyus Jones, Grayson Allen, who've done well playing for Mike Budenholzer's system for that Phoenix Suns team. So, shout out to the Phoenix Suns. They definitely have overachieved. And then if the playoffs started today, the final playoff team would be the Golden State Warriors, sitting at 27-22. They've had some good wins. They've beaten Phoenix. They've beaten Minnesota. Definitely devastating injury blow to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's going to be out for the remainder of the season. I think torn ACL, if I'm not mistaken. And then they got a good stretch of games coming up here. They've got Detroit. They've got Denver. They got Minnesota. They got Phoenix, and they got the Clippers. So that's definitely going to be tough. But the reason why they're in the 8th spot, Steph Curry. Mostly because of Steph Curry. I mean, he's still running around out there like he's in his 20s. I mean, his cardio game, I need to know what his workout routine is, because his cardio game is crazy. But Steph Curry, big part of why the Golden State Warriors are really still competitive in the Western Conference. I mean, like I said, they've got a tough stretch of games coming up over the next 5 games, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Golden State Warriors if they try to make a move for Giannis Antetokounmpo. We'll get into that a little bit later. That's definitely been heavily rumored, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But let's transition here. Let's go ahead and talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo, like I just alluded to, and the latest rumors surrounding his potential trade. So got an article from ESPN pulled up here from ESPN senior insider Shams Charania talking about Giannis, and basically said sources are saying that his sources, Shams Charania, that is, that the Heat, Wolves, Knicks, and Warriors are among the suitors for Giannis Antetokounmpo. So Shams writes, 2-time MVP Giannis Antetokounmpo is ready for a new home ahead of the February 5th trade deadline, as several teams have made aggressive offers to the Milwaukee Bucks, who are starting to listen, league sources told ESPN on Wednesday. Multiple teams have received a sense that the Bucks are more open than ever to Antetokounmpo offers between now and the deadline. However, Milwaukee has indicated to interested teams that the organization is not in a rush to complete a move and is willing to navigate Antetokounmpo's future in the offseason if its believed price point of a blue-chip young talent and or a surplus of draft picks is not met, sources said. By waiting until the summer, the Bucks could also see which teams are able to offer more appealing draft picks in June. And then the article goes on to say the teams I just mentioned, the Miami Heat, Minnesota Timberwolves, New York Knicks, and Golden State Warriors are among the serious suitors for Antetokounmpo. So, of course, there's been a lot of back and forth. We've talked about Giannis a few times. I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but now it's out. It's out. Shams is reporting it. Shams is probably the most credible person when it comes to NBA news or NBA inside information. Now it's coming out that they are listening to offers, and there are some aggressive offers being made. There's lots of talk that the Warriors could potentially offer the best package, but then you've got, who they're not mentioned in the article, the Houston Rockets could also offer a pretty solid trade package as well. But I mean, if Orlando can get what they got for Desmond Bane over the offseason, whoever gets Giannis is going to get a haul like of draft picks, solid young talent. I mean, it's not the talent's not going to equate to Giannis Antetokounmpo right away, but you never know. You might draft a kid coming out of college that ends up being as good as Giannis. I know that's a really high bar, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Giannis, but it definitely looks as if he's getting traded, whether that is before next week's deadline or in the offseason. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I mean, there was a report that came out, I think it was Wednesday, that the San Antonio Spurs were basically not going to try to make an offer for him. They're happy with their young talent, which I'm cool with. Like, as much as great as a player Giannis is, man, we got these solid young guys on rookie deals. Like, let's see what we can do. Let's see what they can become over the next 2 or 3 seasons. I know Giannis is a generational player, but I'm just saying, I like the Spurs core that they have right now, and I hope that they continue to grow. But ladies and gentlemen, that is all the show I have for you fine folks. I said it wasn't going to be a long show, and I talked for 25 minutes. Look at that. But I appreciate you. As I always say, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. If you could do all the good things, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, I would greatly appreciate it. Follow Another Turnover at Another Turnover on all the socials, and enjoy the weekend. What do we got coming up this weekend? Not really a whole lot, because next weekend is the Super Bowl. And then, fellas, you got to take your ladies out for Valentine's Day the following weekend. Thankfully, Super Bowl and Valentine's Day weekend are not the same. So shout out to the NFL. But I appreciate y'all. Stay safe, take care, and I will see you next week. Peace.